Now, first up, is there anything wrong with a consenting adult paying another consenting adult for sex? Well, if the DUP get their way, it will be illegal here. Let's discuss this. Lord Morrow is in the studio tonight, as is the independent Escort, Laura Lee. Lord Morrow, let's start with you. You want this ban to actually help stamp out human trafficking, right? But what's that got to do with prostitution?
Well, you're absolutely right when you say that my bill is to do with human trafficking. And what we do know is that the vast majority of people who are trafficked for sex exploitation. And let me say this at the start, Stephen. This is not about what the DUP wants. This is about what is good for Northern Ireland. We do know that the vast majority...
Well, the DUP doesn't decide what's good for Northern Ireland now, does it?
Let me finish. What we do know is that the vast majority of women who are trafficked into the sex trade. Now, what we do want to put in place is measures that will in fact tackle human trafficking, and we believe that the best way to do this is to ensure that those who purchase a person, a woman, they should be the ones who will go to court, and that's what my bill is designed to do.
But the vast majority of prostitutes are not trafficked, Lord Morrow, are they?
Well, I happen to take the view that the vast majority of them are trafficked, and
where do you get the stats from?
Well, I think there is irrefutable evidence, and we do know.
What is it?
That, well, let me say this: that we do know that in 2008-9, the number of traffic victims was 11. We know that in 2011-12, the number of traffic victims was 27. That's a 150% increase. But let me say this now before you start. Let me say this, that in fact, that is but the tip of the iceberg. We accept that those figures are not the real figures, but they are an indication of what's happening. And we do know from those figures that the vast majority of those have been trafficked for sexual exploitation. That we do know. Those figures are available and the evidence is there.
But as a point of principle, you are against consenting adults paying for sex, aren't you?
What I am against is this. We want to... Let me relate something to you. I got a phone call from a 23-year-old lady who asked to meet me one day at Stormont. And I went along and I met her. And I heard her story. 23 years of age, a lovely young woman, and she was trafficked from Europe into the Irish Republic and ended up here in Northern Ireland. She was raped 22 times. Stephen, how would you feel if that had been your sister? How would you feel if that had been a relative of yours? That young woman was left with no voice, no comfort, no support, nowhere to turn to. That's the type of person that I'm trying to speak for through my bill here. That's what it's all about. That's what it's all about.
And obviously that is disgusting, and everybody will find it disgusting. You would concede, though, that there are some prostitutes who have been born and reared in this country who are a prostitute because they want to be, and there are two consenting adults, one paying money and the other offering a service, never been trafficked in their life. You're also criminalising those people, aren't you?
Well, what I do accept, and I don't need any convincing, I do accept that everybody that's in prostitution has not been coerced and trafficked. I do accept that. Right. But let me say
So why the blanket ban?
Well, hold on a moment. What we do know is in Sweden, which my bill is modelled on, this bill was introduced in Sweden and it reduced trafficking by some 50%. I believe that this is the most effective way of dealing with it. Now, what I suspect you're going to hear tonight is from the very affluent side of prostitution. But you will not hear tonight from those who have no voice, have no one to speak out for them, who have had their passports confiscated, who have had their rights taken away, who have been plunged into a life of debt and crime. You will not hear from them. But I will endeavour to be their voice through this legislation.
We're going to hear from both sides tonight. Laura, you're a prostitute.
I am. A real life living belle, give or take 4 stone.
What would you say to Lord Morrow?
I would say that Lord Morrow is looking at it completely the wrong way. He's saying that he's giving a voice to, if I can quote him as saying, the silent majority. I am the voice of the majority, and I have met a lot of the sex workers that work in the north of Ireland, and to refer to them as trafficked or coerced is quite simply not true. Yes, trafficking happens, yes, abuses happen, but abuses happen in every industry. And no right-thinking person in this room would support a woman being coerced or trafficked or raped. And what I would call on Lord Morrow to do is to introduce a charge of aggravated trafficking in Northern Ireland so that we can hit these traffickers hard, but to leave us consenting adults alone to do our jobs in peace.
And will you leave the consenting adults alone? Will you let Laura choose to sell her body for sex, and will you let a man choose to pay for it without saying he should be criminalised?
Stephen, if you take a look at the figures and see how many have been prosecuted here in Northern Ireland, well, you'll find for trafficking, for human trafficking, I think it's 2. I think now, what does that tell you? Any senior police officer...
Would you deal with the question?
Hold on a moment, let me answer this. Let me say this. Any senior police officer will tell you, if you have got a crime happening in your midst and you're down to just 2 prosecutions, de facto, it's legal. Now, that's what's happening here in Northern Ireland. And, you know, we need to waken up.
The question is, for those people...
and take cognizance of what exactly is going on in our very midst.
Let me try the question again. Would you let a consenting prostitute who has not been trafficked, you still want to criminalise the man who pays for that sex to that consenting prostitute, like Laura?
Let me say this.
Is this about your religious... Can I cut to the chase? Is this about your religious beliefs? Let me do this. Is this what this is about?
This is about victims of trafficking. Right, this is about people who have been coerced. This is about people whose lives are being destroyed in our very midst, and there's no one to speak out for them. That's exactly what I'm trying to do. That's exactly what I'm trying to do.
If it is about those victims, let's distinguish between those victims and the people who are consenting adults. And the question, could you just answer it, please? Yes or no? Are you saying you want to criminalise men who pay a consenting woman, like Laura, who's never been trafficked, for sex?
I am saying if we are going to tackle human trafficking, if we are going to tackle this issue in our midst, then the best way forward is to criminalising the purchasing of a body.
Just to come in there, a very important point to mention is that as sex workers at the moment, we enjoy a good relationship with the police, a good working relationship with the police, and we speak to them quite regularly about concerns that we would have. Behave. Moving swiftly on. So I am very keen to maintain that open relationship with the police, and if Lord Morrow's bill comes into effect, what he's going to do is drive us further away from those authorities that can help those women.
OK, let's go to this young man here, second row. Go ahead. You want to speak directly to Lord Morrow? Go ahead.
Lord Morrow, why should you be the one to determine what a woman does with her own body? Surely it should be her choice and her choice alone.
Well, I'll not be the one that will determine it, but rather there are 108 assembly members sitting on the hill.
You're proposing it.
They will be, hold on, they will be the ones that will determine it. And after all,
this question is obvious. Hold on a minute.
Let me finish. You want to talk all the time. Let me have some say here tonight. You're
doing all right, Lord Morrow. You're doing all right.
Let me say this will not be a decision of Morrow to decide. This will be the collective decision of the Northern Ireland Assembly. That are so many, including this man here, who goes on day and daily and saying, what are they doing up on the hill? Well, what we're trying to do is to introduce legislation and protect victims of human trafficking and so forth. That's exactly what we're trying to do. Can
I tell you what I say, Den Daly? And I'll say it tonight again. You see, when you've got a young man like that that's actually engaging with politicians and wants to know what you as an individual stand for, don't spread it among 108 people. Tell him what you think.
Well, I'm trying to tell this.
That's what I'm telling
you. He has asked the question, no, sir, I cannot do it on my own. But what I am trying to do is to put in place legislation whereby the
Why don't you repeat the question?
Assembly members will support it and back it. That's what I'm trying to do.
Here's his question again. Go ahead.
If that woman wants to be a prostitute, why can't she be a prostitute? What's stopping her? Why do you have to try and stop her? It's her own decision, it shouldn't be anyone else's decision.
Well, you mustn't have listened to what I said at the start.
No.
What we have said is this, that the majority of women who are in prostitution have been trafficked.
What majority is that, Lord Morrow?
No, I understand your agenda, and I understand that you're here to give the ritzy-glitzy side of this whole industry.
Ritzy-glitzy, that's very kind.
What you're not prepared to do is to talk about the victims. This is something that is alien to you.
I'm quite prepared to talk about the victims.
How many victims have you represented? Are you aware that, in fact, the vast majority, of course you're aware, that the vast majority of women who are trafficked in for sexual exploitation? You must be aware of that. But yet, you decide to turn the blind eye. Now, I suspect there are many.
That's completely unnecessary.
Hold on a moment. Let me say this.
Fully in support of supporting women.
When this young lady come to me, I could have easily said, what is that to me? I'll turn a blind eye and I'll walk away and say, let alone that doesn't happen. No, I have a duty of responsibility and care here.
As do
and
I.
I believe, as legislators, we have that to do.
You are placing sex workers in danger. 1,000 sex workers through the north of Ireland are going to have their lives put in danger if your bill goes through.
That is utter rubbish. What I am doing is I am protecting women. I am the voice for the voiceless, for those who have no voice.
Let me speak to Dr. Nick May tonight, who's from London Metropolitan University. You've carried out research of this, Nick. What do you think?
Well, I think that our research found out exactly the opposite picture that the one that Lord Morrow, he seems to have produced here on the basis of no evidence. The evidence is that a minority of women are trafficked, and the majority of women working in the sex industry decide to do so. And so, yes, it's true that the majority of people who are trafficked in the sex industry, but the most important data is that only a minority of women are forced. So a criminalization of clients would push the sex industry underground. It would make it more difficult for sex workers to reach out to vital anti-violence and health services, and would be detrimental to the well-being of sex workers. So it would only, it pays probably in terms of propaganda to put it like something that would help sex workers, but it wouldn't. It would be detrimental.
Dr. Mike, thank you very much indeed. You'll see the numbers coming up on your screen tonight if you do want to pick up the phone, 08459 555 678. Now, Mary is on the line. Mary, you were a prostitute, is that right?
Yes, that's right.
And you would like to speak to Laura tonight?
I certainly would.
Go ahead.
Well, first of all, the first thing I was listening to the conversation, and I'd like to say the same punter that would be with Laura, for instance, tonight, tomorrow night would be with a trafficked woman. He does not. The punters don't ask the girls, are you okay? Are you trafficked? Are you not trafficked? Number two, I don't know where Laura's working. I think she's working in Scotland or whatever. She's certainly not working in our Ireland. Now, at the end of the day, if we are raped, which I was raped and beaten, I certainly would not go to the police because we would be arrested, okay, for being prostitutes. But in saying that, it's okay for the man. We're not against prostitutes. What we are fighting for is equal rights. The man should be prosecuted. It is not right to be able to sell human flesh. Nothing makes that right.
Go on, Laura, speak to Mary.
First of all, Mary, I think you're very much mistaken in that, in my experience, punters are more than happy to go forward on an anonymous basis to Crime Stoppers and to report anything that they've seen which they find untoward. These are human beings, after all. They're not beasts, they're not animals. They do care about us. Secondly, I do work in...
How do they care about you if all they want is sex and to walk away from you, Laura? How do they care about you?
They do care.
They've got money in their pocket. They use your body and they walk away from you.
They don't use my body. They use my skills, and I'm a 5'9" dominatrix. So they better care. Secondly, Mary, to address your other question there, that whether I work in the north of Ireland, I do indeed. Actually, I've been working in Belfast for the last 3 days, and I'm hearing on the grapevine that there's going to be police and firemen en masse here in August. Is that correct? Yes, I'll be back in August. So,
you see. Well, do you know what? For the people in this audience who are laughing, and there's quite a few of you laughing. What if it was your sister? Seriously. What if it was your sister who was selling her body for sex, or indeed brother, and there was some stranger who happened to have enough money to take her, to buy her, and then to walk away from her. Would you really be laughing? Quite a few of you laughed there. Any of you that laughed, prepared to speak up now? I don't know if you laughed or not, but you got your hand up. Hello, right down the very front here.
Hi.
Let's just get a mic to you. There we go. Okay. Go ahead.
Well, I just happen to be a freelance journalist who I've interviewed you twice already. I've interviewed several other women that are in the business, and I actually have 2 friends back at home that are in the business as well. One's a guy whose customers are rich women. Other one is a girl who has women and men as customers. And on both sides of the Atlantic, the customers tell me that it's of their own free choice. And the ones I've interviewed over here that work in Northern Ireland, they emphasize that if you criminalize the purchasing of sex, they're going to push the victims that are actually trafficked, that do need help, further away, because both the customers and the consenting prostitutes will be scared to go tell the police if they feel like they're going to be criminalized and sent to jail.
Okay. There's someone up here just with right beside Vinny. Hello. Yes, the blonde hair and the glasses. Go ahead.
Thanks. I honestly don't think, Lord Morrow, I think you're wrong regarding to do this, because it is going to push it underground. There'll be no control, and the women's lives will be more at risk and danger. I've had a couple of friends in the past who were in the business. I don't in any way judge anybody, but with the police and all, we're working with them at one stage. They felt a bit safer. So
do you not get a sense that she was glamorising it though? That Laura was just glamour, That's
her choice. That's her job. That's what she wants to do.
But as a society, we put norms around everything. And to be fair to Lord Morrow, essentially what he's doing here is saying, yes, he wants to protect those women who might be trafficked, and also, you're saying, it's not right for a man, because he's got money, to use a woman for sex. Is that fair? To buy a person?
Well, let me try and answer the lady that's just spoken there. She says that this will drive it underground. That has not been the experience in Sweden. That has not happened in Sweden. And let me say something else in relation to the Swedish model.
This is not Sweden. The police have different challenges here, don't they?
Hold on a moment. Everything in its place. My bill is modelled on the Swedish model, so it is. It's not exactly it, but it's the idea. And let me say this, whenever this legislation was being introduced in Sweden, the then head of the police in Stockholm was opposed to the introduction of the legislation. However, years later, when it came to his retirement, what did he say? He said, no, just let me finish.
Quick as you can.
Yes. He said that when this was introduced, I was opposed to it, he said. I now acknowledge that this is good legislation, this is effective legislation,
okay.
And he says I shouldn't have opposed it.
I want to thank you. I want to head to our lead studio now. Asta. Hello to you, Asta.
Hi, how are you?
Hello there. Nice to talk to you, Asta. Now, you're disabled. You're sitting in a wheelchair tonight, and you lost your virginity to a prostitute when you were 25.
Yep, I did.
Why did you decide to do that?
Because I wanted that sexual experience for myself. I was surrounded by all my friends who were having this experience, and just because I was in a wheelchair, that was the huge barrier between me and wanting that experience. And it's not only just that experience, these women are providing a service of intimacy and human contact. And as far as Lord Morrow is concerned, yes, I agree with the human trafficking, but really, get back in your box and see, let's start to see the human side, because, I think you're coming from, your facts and figures, but you're stuttering all over the place. As soon as you have real facts and figures and coming from the human heart, then you come back to us and you say what you're going to do. But until then, just go back in your box.
Lord Morrow?
Well, let me say this. I've listened to what I missed his first name.
Asta.
Asta. I want to say this to Asta, that my bill does not discriminate. But let me also say this.
It would criminalise him.
Well, hold on a moment. Well, look, sometimes there are some things that are just not acceptable or doable. Now,
what isn't that? Yeah,
let me say.
No. Let me finish.
Hold on.
Let him reply to the answer, then you can come back.
I didn't interrupt you. Now, let me say this, that, I happen to believe that everybody is equal in the law and equally subject to the law.
You think it's a sin, don't
I
you?
just happen to believe
You
that.
think this is a sin?
Well,
that's what this is about with somebody like him,
No,
isn't it?
hold on. It seems to be that whenever anyone in this country raises an issue of what would be deemed a moral issue, they're castigated, they're pillarised, they're demonised, they're marginalised, and they're being pulled to pieces. Well, quite frankly, I don't mind being pulled to pieces if it's something that I feel strongly about. And I am not going to be deterred for speaking out for victims of human trafficking. Nobody's going to do that. Nobody's going to do that.
Fair enough.
Not
Okay.
here, no, not
Fair
everybody.
enough.
And I believe that this bill, I believe that this piece of legislation can be very
enough.
effective, and it can
Okay.
bring good, and
Okay.
it can protect
Okay.
those who are victims of human trafficking.
fair enough.
That's what it's all about.
Fair enough.
You tell me it's fair enough, but let me say this to you.
Well, it's just
You
because Asta's
keep-
sitting here in the
no, but
studio,
you just keep
and he's
wanting
asking
to
you
turn
about
it round.
well, I'm not turning it round. There are many different areas of this bill. Your bill does not just cover people who have suffered from human trafficking. It also covers people, Lord Morrow, like Asta, who is he was a 25-year-old disabled man when he decided that he wanted the human experience of having sex, and he decided he wanted to buy it as a consenting adult from a consenting prostitute. Now, you would criminalise him. You would give him a criminal record, wouldn't you?
It is Asta telling me tonight that all these women that he has used, that none of them were coerced, none of them were trafficked into.
No, but talk
they're
about
all there
him.
Would
you criminalise him?
I'm talking about.
Would you
It's him I'm
criminalise him
talking
in
about.
his
Let me say
situation?
this. I am asking him the question.
Absolutely.
Is he telling me here
Absolutely.
tonight
Do you know what?
that
Do you know
all
what?
those women that he has used,
Yeah.
none of them has been trafficked?
Absolutely
How do you know that?
not.
All right,
How do you
go
know
on,
that?
Asta.
How do you know it?
Absolutely not, because
How do you know it?
because I tell you why. Because I'm friends with them all now, and I know exactly what they're doing, and I've met all their families.
Yes, and did you hear, Asta, whenever I spoke
And-
about the lady that I met, the 23-year-old
Can I ask
who
you a
was
question?
trafficked
Well, Asta,
from Europe
Can I
into the Irish Republic
Can I
and
ask
ended
you a
up here
question?
in Northern Ireland?
Can I ask you a question?
Asta, can I ask you a question, actually?
course.
And the question is this. Because you're a disabled man, doesn't mean that you have to buy sex, does it?
Not at all.
Some people would argue that you should have waited for someone to fall in love with you and to respect you and your body for who you are.
Absolutely.
And actually there would be 25-year-old people who are not disabled who waited until someone loved them.
Absolutely.
And maybe Asta, what you did was cheap.
Well, you know, cheat, whatever it was. I wanted that human contact with someone else. You know, it's when you go outside of the door and greet someone at work, maybe, or one of your friends, you can go up to them and hug them automatically. I can't. I need to ask someone to do that. And in life, it's just a lot harder for me to do these things, having a disability. And
Okay.
I'd like to ask Lord Morrow one more question. Where do you get your human contact from?
Well, hold on a minute. Do you know what? I'm not going down that route. And
You wouldn't do, would you?
Well, no, I wouldn't.
No,
actually,
you wouldn't.
no, I
Get
wouldn't.
back in
And
your
Lord
box.
Morrow
And
should
you
be
know what?
afforded
I
the
think-
same amount of respect
I think
as
Stephen
anyone else
Nolan,
in the studio.
I think Stephen Nolan hit on a subject there. Is it the religious thing? You know, that's what we've got to think about.
Paul Manili is with
Just let
us
me
this
say to
evening.
Asta, I'm in a very happy marriage relationship.
Okay,
There you
that's
go.
enough. Paul Manili from the Evangelical Alliance. Hello to you, Paul. Where are you? What do you think?
Yeah, thank you. Obviously, this is a really important topic. And if I could say one thing for the Evangelical Alliance, we broadly agree with Lord Morrow's bill, especially with the focus on prosecution for the men, not the women. We are concerned, though, that it flattens prostitution and trafficking. For example, at the minute, if a man uses the services of a trafficked woman, you know, she hasn't chosen to be there. She's been subject to force. And any other, we would call that rape. And at the minute, the maximum penalty is just a fine, and we just don't think that's good enough. We don't think it's acceptable. It doesn't send a good enough voice. What if he faced, like, going to the sex offenders register or going to prison?
Okay, Paul, thank you. Let me go up into the audience. Yes, with your hand up. Go ahead.
Laura, she was saying about those 1,000 sex traffickers in Northern Ireland.
Hold on, I can't hear you. Just wait till we get your mic on properly. Go ahead.
Laura was saying there's 1,000 sex workers in Northern Ireland. What do they pay in tax? What do they add to the community aside from the social aspects or the moral aspects of it?
I think we do a very important social job, actually. I think that with regard to what Asta was saying, I myself do a lot of work with disabled clients, and it's a very rewarding and enriching part of the work I do. And yes, I do pay taxes, and I'm registered and paid by national insurance as well. So you know, I struggle with the notion that it's morally superior for me to sit at home and claim benefits and watch Jeremy Kyle all day than to go out and earn a living and support my family.
And the other 1,000, can you say that they're, honestly, can you say you think they all pay tax?
I have been in the sex
Okay,
industry
of
now
course you
for
can.
just under 20 years, and
you
I
can.
have met a lot of sex workers.
There's a young lady here with her hand up, second row. Go ahead.
Lord Barr, I just want to know, if you're going on about human trafficking, why don't you target the human traffickers instead of the men buying the sex? Because at the end of the day, if they weren't there to start off with, it's not there to be offered, so why would you not target that more than criminalising the men?
That's exactly what we're trying to do in this bill. This is what we feel is the most effective way to tackle human trafficking and to tackle and to bring relief and support to those who have been coerced into this industry.
Okay, Lord Morrow.
Criminalising men instead of just the human traffickers, that's all that's come out of this.
We're out of time. We've lots of different vehicles to continue the discussion on the Nolan radio show tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock, on Twitter at Stephen Nolan. In the meantime, ladies and gentlemen, please thank Laura and Lord Morrow. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Right. Here's what's still